In this video, I am going to discuss O.Williamson's model of managerial discretion. And let us first see certain points as introduction to this model. We know that in this model, we are going to focus on managerial utility function. And here we are trying to argue that managers have some sort of discretion in taking certain decisions as to what kind of objectives the firm should follow. In fact, this managerial discretion or the freedom that the managers enjoy really makes this model quite different from all other models dealing with this kinds of behavior of the firms. That is managerial behavior of the firms. One point of difference which I would like to make at this juncture is that while in Mary's model, we see an equilibrium or balanced growth equilibrium between the demand of the product of the firm and the growth of capital supply as the point of equilibrium of the firm. Here, very different from that, we only give importance to the managerial utility. It doesn't mean that we are completely negating the owner side. We are also considering the owner side here, but compared to the owner's utility, here the managerial utility has been given more stress. That's why I said in the Mary's model, the balanced growth rate, that means a utility maximization of the manager and a utility maximization of the owner of the firm. Both are given importance in the case of the Mary's model. But here we are just giving importance to the managerial utility function. But at the same time, the owner's satisfaction is also important. The managers will have to keep in mind the owner's demands while pursuing the objective of managerial discretion in this model. And here profit acts as a constraint to this managerial behavior. Because that means the owners must get certain reasonable profit and acceptable level of profit. The managerial utility function includes such variables as salary, security, power, status, prestige, and professional excellence. So these are the things which will decide the managerial utility function. Salary, of course, is very important because as salary increases, the manager's utility will be raised. Security, especially the job security, that seems very important because if the managers feel that they are likely to be dismissed at any time, then it will reduce their utility. So as the feeling of job security increases, the manager's utility function also enhances. The other is power, the area over which they have a power. That's very important because as power increases, if they are able to exercise a lot of power, then their managerial utility or managerial satisfaction is likely to be raised. Status is yet another important factor determining the managerial utility. A good status means that will increase the managerial utility function. Then yet another one is prestige, and another is professional excellence. But of all these variables like salary, security, power, status, prestige, professional excellence, only one variable is measurable, that is salary. The other variables like security, power, status, prestige, and professional excellence are non-pecuniary. Non-pecuniary simply means not measurable. They are not measurable. They are not quantitatively measurable. Therefore, they are to be expressed in terms of some other variables, measurable variables. And this is attained by the concept of expense preference. What is expense preference? Expense preference is defined as the satisfaction which managers derive from certain types of expenditures. What are these expenditures? These are the three kinds of expenditure: staff expenditure, emoluments, and discretionary investment expenses. These are measurable in money terms and will be used as proxy variables to replace the non-operational concepts appearing in the manager utility function. Thus, the utility function of the managers may be written in the following form. Utility is a function of S, M, and ID, where S stands for staff expenditure, including salaries, M, managerial emoluments, and ID is discretionary investment. So if staff expenditure increases, of course, utility of the managers will be raised. And if managerial emoluments rise, then also the utility of the managers will be increased. And lastly, ID or discretionary investment. This is also very important. If the managers have got a lot of things, a lot of money to be used as per the discretion of the managers, then definitely the managers' utility will be raised. Now we will see certain basic relations and definitions. The demand of the firm. The demand of the firm or the demand for the product of the firm is a function of three things. X is a function of PS epsilon. X is the quantity of output demanded, P is the price, S is the staff expenditure, and epsilon represents the condition of the environment. That simply shows the market condition, which is of course that can be considered say shift variable or shift factor. Now, if you come to this point, what is this? This actually shows that there is a negative connection between the price and X output. We simply shows that as X rises, the price falls. As X rises, the price falls. That's a simple argument. If you produce more quantity and supply the same quantity to the market, then the price will be reduced. That means there is a negative relation between X and P. What does this mean? This means as staff expenditure increases, then the price will also be raised. Positive connection is greater than zero. That means if more people get more money, staff expenditure rises, and definitely there will be an increase in the demand for the product, and as a result of which, price of the product in the market will be raised. Similarly, this also shows a positive connection. As epsilon rises, that means if there is an improvement in market condition, definitely the price of the commodities may be right because the price of the commodities that's likely to be raised. Now, coming to the production cost or cost of production, we simply know that output. We simply know that as output rises, that definitely the cost of production also increases. That means there is a positive connection between this output and the cost of production. Now, coming to these two important things, actual profit and reported profit. What is actual profit? Actual profit is pi, actual profit pi. That is obtained by deducting Z and S from R. R is the revenue from sales. C is the production cost, and S is the staff expenditure. So if you deduct this production cost and staff expenditure from R, you will be getting pi, or pi is equal to R minus C plus S. R minus C plus S. So if when you deduct the cost and the staff expenditure from revenue, then you will be getting what is called a pi. That's one. Then reported profit. What is reported profit? Reported profit is nothing but pi r, that's the reported profit, which is equal to pi minus m M is the managerial emoluments. That means when you deduct from M managerial emolument, then you will be getting pi r, or pi r is equal to R minus C plus S plus M. So when you deduct these three components from revenue, then you will be getting what is called a reported profit. Now let us come to another important thing, minimum profit. What is minimum profit? Minimum profit simply is a profit which is required for an acceptable dividend policy by the shareholders. We know that shareholders should get a dividend. Then only they will feel that they are satisfied with the managers. If the shareholders are not happy with the dividend being given to them, then they are likely to remove these managers from the post. So it is the responsibility of the manager to ensure that the shareholders, real owners of the firm, they get profit. That's a minimum profit. So minimum profit is the amount of profit which is required for an acceptable dividend policy by the shareholders. So the reported profit must be at least as high as minimum profit requirement. Minimum profit is pi 0. So reported profit must be higher than this minimum profit, or it must be equal to this minimum profit. It must be equal to this minimum profit plus T. T is the tax. T is the tax. So minimum, the reported profit must at least be higher or equal to this minimum profit plus tax. Then the tax function takes this form. This is the total tax. This is a lump sum tax. And T, small letter t, is the tax rate. And pi r is the reported profit. Now let's come to the discretionary investment, that's ID. Discretionary investment is the amount left from the reported profit. That is, when you deduct minimum profit and tax from reported profit, then you will get investment for discretionary purpose or discretionary investment. This can be used by the firms or managers in accordance with their discretionary powers. So when you deduct minimum profit and tax from reported profit, you will be getting what is called ID or discretionary investment. Now come to this discretionary profit. Discretionary profit by D, it's nothing but what is left after subtracting from the actual profit. This actual profit. We are subtracting two things, minimum profit and tax. Then you will be getting what is called the discretionary profit. So discretionary profit is the amount of profit left after subtracting from the actual profit two things, minimum profit requirement and the tax. Now we come to a simplified model of managerial discretion. In this model, we assume that there are no managerial emoluments, so that actual profit is same as the reported profit. Now, the simplified model may be stated as follows. Maximize utility is a function of S, staff expenditure, and ID, discretionary investment. Now we are going to convert this to this one. U is a function of S and pi d that we are going to do. So this equation, this function will be converted into this function, or instead of ID, we are going to write pi d. So in the final analysis, we need this utility function, utility of managers, being written as a function of staff expenditure S and discretionary profit pi d. So therefore, let us consider this utility function U as a function of staff expenditure and discretionary investment. And this function has to be satisfied subjected to this condition. That is, pi must be greater or equal to pi naught. Pi naught means minimum profit plus tax. Since there are no emoluments, discretionary investment absorbs all discretionary profit. Thus, we may write the utility function as utility as a function of A staff expenditure, and instead of ID we write pi minus pi 0 minus t. And we know that this t is nothing but t is small letter t, which shows tax rate into pi. Pi is the profit. So we write this equation as, that is, instead of this t, we are going to write pi minus pi 0 minus small letter t into pi. Here we have pi here both. Okay, so what we do is that here from this and this we will take out this pi because pi is common here. So when you take out pi from here, it will become 1 minus, we are writing this t, and out of bracket we are writing pi. Then we will, okay, minus pi 0. This pi 0 is this one. So that means by doing this, we will get this utility function. U is a function of staff expenditure, that is written as the same. Then for this component, pi minus pi 0 minus t, we are writing this one. I minus t into I minus I 0. And this is what is called the discretionary profit. This whole component is what is called discretionary profit. So substituting pi d instead of this component, we will get this equation, that is utility as a function of staff expenditure and discretionary profit, that we have done in the next one. Now, so we have this this thing, finally this thing, where utility of manager is written as a function of staff expenditure and pi d. So here we have two important variables, staff expenditure and discretionary profit, determining the utility function of the managers. Now we are going to present the same thing with the help of a figure. Let's come to this slide. Now, the graphical presentation of the equilibrium of firm requires the construction of indifference curves. You know what is indifference curve. And indifference curve map we will draw here. On x-axis, staff expenditure is shown, that is S. So here we will show S, x-axis. And on y-axis, we will show pi d, discretionary profit. Then we will get indifference curves like this, showing the utility of the managers. So each indifference curve shows combinations of staff expenditure and discretionary profit, which gives the same satisfaction to the managers. This is the indifference curve. Look at here. Along x-axis, staff expenditure S is shown. Along y-axis, discretionary profit pi d is shown. These are the indifference curve. This is the highest indifference curve, giving highest utility to the managers, but different combinations of pi d and staff expenditure. And here, this will give you less utility compared to the first one, and this will give you further less utility compared to the other two one. Okay, so this is the indifference curves showing the utility of the managers depending upon two variables pi d and s. So simply here we have written utility as a function of two important variables, staff expenditure and discretionary profit pi d. Now we need this staff expenditure profit curve. This is not a staff expenditure profit curve. This one. This one is known as staff expenditure profit curve. Okay, you can see that here a staff expenditure and profit discretionary profit, they go on the same way up to this point. As staff expenditure increases, this is staff expenditure along x-axis, this is pi d or discretionary profit. As staff expenditure increases, discretionary profit also increases up to this point b. When point b is reached, we have the maximum discretionary profit, and staff expenditure there is S pi max. S means staff expenditure, pi max means profit maximum. That means discretionary profit maximum. When you have this expenditure, your discretionary profit is maximum. After that also you can increase the expenditure, but what happens? Discretionary profit falls. When you reach here C, discretionary profit becomes 0. And when you further increase staff expenditure, discretionary profit becomes negative. This becomes negative. So our staff expenditure discretionary profit curve is an inverted U-shaped one. This is an inverted U-shaped one. This is an inverted U-shaped one. This is U-shape. This goes like this. So therefore, this curve, staff expenditure discretionary profit curve, is an inverted U-shaped one, which shows that initially there is a positive connection between staff expenditure and discretionary profit, but after reaching a maximum level at point B, as both are related negatively, meaning as staff expenditure increases, discretionary profit falls. So the same thing is given in this slide. In the above figure, the initial stages of production and up to the level of output where profit reaches maximum level, point B in the figure, both discretionary profit and staff expenditure increase. If production exceeds this level, profit starts declining, but staff expenditure rise. If these staff expenditures exceed point C, the minimum profit constraint is not satisfied. Hence, points to the left of B are not feasible points because we cannot select a point left to C. They are not feasible point in the sense that here in this region, this discretionary profit becomes negative. Now, the equilibrium of the firm is determined by the point of tangency, very important point of tangency of the profit staff curve with the highest possible managerial indifference curve. So that's the point of equilibrium. So point of equilibrium is determined by the point of tangency of the profit staff curve with the highest possible managerial indifference curve. This happens at point E in the following figure. See here, we have the equilibrium at point E because at point E, the highest possible indifference curve, U3, is tangent to the profit staff curve. This is a profit staff curve. So we consider point E as the point of equilibrium. There, the equilibrium level of staff expenditure is S ostick, and equilibrium level of profit, discretionary profit, is pi D ostick. B is the maximum point of the discretionary profit, but at that point, we have a very less staff expenditure. So therefore, in short, this is the utility, this is a managerial utility curve, that is U3, that is the indifference curve, where it is tangent to the profit staff curve. So therefore, we say that the firm is in equilibrium when it comes to the point E, where the profit staff curve, that is the inverted U-shaped curve, is tangent to the indifference curve of the managers. So when the firm reaches the point E, we say that managers have got maximum satisfaction given the constraints. The constraint is the profit. So given the constraint, the managers have reached a maximum level of satisfaction given by the highest possible indifference curve in this figure, that is U3. Now let's come to certain criticisms that have been raised against this Williamson's model of managerial discretion. The first one is that this model uses staff expenditure as a proxy for the compensation that the managers receive. This is logically incorrect. And second one is that the available evidence is not enough for the verification of the model. That means available econometric analysis does not support the validity of the model of Williamson's discretionary managerial discretion. And the last criticism is the model fails to deal with the core problem of oligopolistic interdependence. Thank you.